So where are we talking to you in Virginia?
Yes, I am.
Great.
I am in my office. It is messy. I don't know how much of you can, yeah, you can see it right now, but hopefully not that much. Just like boxes on the floor and crap. And
Yeah.
oh no, where am I going to do this interview?
Well, the ceiling fan behind you is very organized and neat. So
Excellent. I told it to look its best today.
yeah, it's doing a very good job. Um, Great. So we'll talk for about 10 minutes and
Okay.
we'll just take the best parts of this. It's not live when we do it,
Okay.
and we'll get it ready for Fun Date.
All right.
So one thing I'm sort of curious about with you is, you've written these six previous thrillers, all with Carter Ross as the protagonist. Uh, like dramatic shift. You're not writing about him this time. It's standalone. Tell me about that change for you. How did it feel to start out with something entirely new?
Exciting, terrifying, gratifying in the end. I think I had been through six novels with Carter, slowly developing the urge to try something different, something more ambitious.
Mm.
And this was obviously a story I could not tell in Carter's world. With a judge as a protagonist, it just wouldn't work. So it was a different process. Um, I I think that one of the big things was, Carter is this kind of happy-go-lucky bachelor type character. And when I started writing him, I was a happy-go-lucky bachelor type character. And suddenly here I am. I'm 42, as you can probably tell from the male pattern baldness.
Yeah.
I've got a wife. I've got two kids. I still enjoy life tremendously, but it's different at
Yeah.
that stage of life. And I wasn't necessarily always accessing that happy-go-lucky guy anymore. Life gets more serious when you've got two kids, and I was finding myself. I think the Carter Ross novels certainly got a little darker, a little more serious. But I was just finding those were more the stories I was being drawn to, and
Mm.
I couldn't do that in Carter's world, so I had to create a new world.
Yeah. Sort of. I mean, because Carter Ross, who knows if his personality is like you, but certainly,
Oh, I know.
but on the outside, tall guy, kind of maybe might look like you.
Just a little bit. Yeah, he has more hair for sure.
Yeah. But did it feel liberating to write about somebody, a federal judge?
Yeah, it was. There are still parts of Scott Sampson that are very much me, that I very much identify with. I mean, particularly when it comes to the family aspect. If you've read as far as page one of the novel, he talks about playing baby hippo with his kids. I may play baby hippo with my kids. So there are aspects of him that are still very much me. But yeah, it was really fun to explore a character who was very different. Carter Ross was a journalist. I used to be a journalist, not a big stretch there. Scott Sampson is a judge. I knew next to nothing about that life. And certainly in the early phases of the novel, one of the things I did was I hung out with a federal judge for a while. I cannot say too much about that because I promised the judge total and complete anonymity. You may be aware of this, Clay, but judges are not really interview happy, especially this day and age when they're being put in the crossfire all the time.
Yeah.
So it was I just had to promise this him or her that I would not reveal their name in any way, but to get access to that world and to see what it's like and to really understand how much thought they put into their rulings, how much they agonize over them, how personal it really is, even though it doesn't seem like it would be a personal thing.
Mhm.
That was all very fascinating, and so really being able to explore this very new character was a wonderful thing for me.
Yeah. There's a writer in Virginia who's a judge. I don't think he's a federal judge,
Yeah,
but
Martin Clark is his name. He
yeah.
is. I've met Martin. He and I were up for an award together. The bastard won it. I think it was basically because he threatened to throw in jail anybody who didn't give him the award, and
Right.
so he won it. But no, he is actually a lovely guy. Martin is a circuit court judge
Yes.
which is kind of the base level of well, it's not the base level is the general district court. So circuit court is felonies and
Mhm.
whatnot in Virginia.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a lovely guy. But
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
federal is a different thing, and federal judges I think are very taciturn in general. You will very seldom see a federal judge giving the tell-all interview or writing the memoir or anything like that.
My uncle is one, so
Okay, then you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm guessing he hasn't gone on Oprah or Charlie Rose or anything like that to
Oh my
discuss his
God.
cases, or
You,
a nice piece in a lifestyle magazine at home with the judge and his wife. I'm guessing that didn't happen.
yeah, he would have a heart attack. So,
Yeah.
so I read that you're like definitely sort of a seat of the pants kind of
Yeah,
writer. You're not a plotter kind of
absolutely.
writer. Has that always worked for you? I mean, obviously you started out in journalism, um, but no problems with sort of knowing where you're going or anything like that.
It is an unmitigated catastrophe with every single book I write, Clay. So no, I mean, yes, there have been problems, lots of problems, big problems all the time. But it's also kind of the only way I can do it. I actually did try one time outlining a book. It was a very intricate thriller. You kind of had three storylines coming together in the same place. You got to get all the trains in the station at the same moment. So I wrote this 18,000 word outline, right? And I got up every day knowing exactly what scene I had to write, exactly what people were going to say, exactly what was going to happen. And it was the most boring thing I had ever done. I mean, and it made the writing flat. Basically, I mean, the writing had no life to it. And by the time, I mean, I wrote all the way to the end of that book and I read it and I said, you know what? This has no heart in it. And I threw it away.
Yeah.
And that's when I learned, you know what? I'm not a plotter. Like I need to be for me to really be invested in the writing, it has to be a surprise for me. I have to let the characters kind of organically become what they're meant to be. And yeah, that can be terrifying. And I make a lot of mistakes and I have to go back and fix things all the time.
Mm.
And it's a pain in the butt, but it's also the only way that works for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you've had a long career in journalism. You obviously respect deadlines, and that's sort of one, I guess, ingredient in why you're successful as a novelist. But what about writer's block? Like, do you ever do you
Uh,
even believe in that?
Only 4 to 5 times a week.
Okay,
I try to limit it to that. Yeah,
good
I
to
mean,
know.
it's a continual part of the process. I mean, for me, it's not writer's block. I mean,
Mhm.
if I have the idea, like writing in the, it's not the words. The words are never the problem. It's the ideas, and I have idea block approximately 4 or 5 times a week. I have a patented strategy for what I do. The first thing is self-loathing. Like you need to really hate yourself, tell yourself you are the worst author who ever lived, that you ought to shoot yourself before you even think about writing another sentence. So that's step one. Step two is griping to my wife.
Mhm.
I wouldn't recommend this for other writers because I don't think my wife would like it if they gripe to them, but nevertheless, I gripe to my wife.
Okay.
And then I go out for a run. And
Mhm.
generally, within about 2 or 3 miles of a 4 or 5 mile run, I have figured out everything that was wrong. And then I come home to my wife, tell her I'm the greatest writer who ever lived, and move on with my life. Don't you
Right.
feel sorry for that woman now?
It's a pretty perfect recipe. Gosh.
Yeah, really, flawless.
Um, and so besides your editor and I guess your wife, I mean, do you still have people read
Oh, sure.
your
Sure.
manuscript before you turn it
Yeah,
in?
yeah. I have a good librarian friend who's a beta reader. My parents are beta readers. Yeah, I have a number of people, and I constantly. Well, I ask them two things always. One, was there anything that was confusing to you? Because I get in the business of confusing readers. I guess that's the newspaper guy in me. And two, was there any place you got bored?
Mhm.
Because that to me is the death knell of the thriller. You cannot be bored at any point in time. And so if they tell me, yeah, I think it kind of dragged a bit in there, I know that's a part I need to work on.
Right, right. And I mean, do you always see yourself writing thrillers? Like, could you ever write something that's not a thriller?
Clay, what are you, my mom? Like, well, this is something my mom is always like, well, honey, you're a very bright boy. You could write something other than a thriller. As if only dumb guys write thrillers, which
Right.
might not be all that far off, I suppose. I love doing this. Certainly, I've certainly thought about nonfiction. I do have that journalist bent in me, and if I kind of came across the right story, I'd love to go back to that. In terms of writing literature, I doubt it. I got to be honest, Clay. I don't understand literature most of the time. I understand stories where stuff happens, and I think
Right.
so much of modern literature has gotten away from what I consider to be storytelling, which storytelling is you take people, you make stuff happen to them, and then you see how they react. And I think when we think about the really truly great works that have lasted the test of time, or the great writers who have lasted the test of time, I mean, Mark Twain, buddy, that's just great storytelling, right? And today he might be considered to be writing thrillers. I don't even know, but I think I think literature, fine literature, has almost taken a wrong turn because it's gotten so far away from storytelling. So
Yeah.
I will always be writing books where stuff happens.
Yeah.
You or somebody else categorize it in a different genre, yeah, that could happen. But I think that stories have to have a momentum to them. They have to be propelling forward by the things that are happening to the characters.
Yeah. Well, you do a good job of it.
Thank you.
So congrats on this. I saw that very enthusiastic review we wrote. So
Yep, appreciate
congrats.
that, by the way.
Yeah. And I hope that does book well, and we'll get this ready for pub date.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Pleasure being on. So do I need to do anything disconnecting from this, or?
No, you can just hit stop
Okay.
and go back to your day.
Cool. Awesome, man.
Okay.
Thanks
Okay,
for
have a good day. Okay.
You-
Bye-bye.